This last video is just kind of the last little bit of the midterm review. So it starts on question 12, which asks us what type of graphs are used to display quantitative data. So quantitative data, that's data that involves numbers. So for this, we can graph a histogram. We could use a stem plot. You could even use a box plot for this as well. Number 13 talks about margin of error and asks margin of error adjusts for what type of error. So for this one, it's random sampling error. So your margin of error has nothing to do with non-response. So if it was non-response, remember that's when people don't respond. Your random sampling error would just be kind of, error that happened by chance. Non-sampling error, that would be things like, it had nothing to do with your sampling. So it would be things like maybe a data processing error. And remember, under coverage is when we leave out part of the population. So margin of error only applies to that random sampling error, that, error that would happen by chance because of the random sampling. Question 14 wants us to define or give an example of stratified sampling. So stratified sampling is where we split our sample into groups first, then take a sample, a random sample, actually, from there. So it would be like if we split up, we were looking at students at West High School, and we split up freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors. And then from the freshmen, we took 25 random students. From the sophomores, we took 25 random. From the seniors, we took 25, and from the juniors, we took 25 random. That would be stratified sampling. Number 15 wants to know about voluntary sampling. So remember, voluntary sampling is when, people volunteer to be in the sample. So think of when radio stations ask people to call in and to give their opinion, or a poll on Facebook or on Instagram. That's a voluntary sample because you don't have to, you don't have to call in, you don't have to complete the poll. Those are voluntary things. Convenience sample is when you sample people that are easy for us to reach. Typically, that's going to be friends and families. When you're interviewing your friends, you're interviewing family, you're interviewing people that are in your classes at school, or you go to one location and kind of, get survey people at that one location. That's a convenience sampling. All right, and number 17 wants to know what are the 3 basic requirements for an ethical study of human subjects. So there's 3 requirements. The first is where you get approval from an institutional review board. The second one is that you get informed consent from the subjects. And the third one is confidentiality. So you are keeping everything confidential. The last question on the review guide, you're dealing with percent increase or decrease. So the average salary of engineers increased last year from $55,000 to $62,000. We want to calculate the percent increase. So whenever we're dealing with percent increase or decrease, so basically percent change, what I always do, I take the bigger number subtract the smaller number, and you divide it by whichever one comes first, so the original number. So in our case, we're dealing with a percent increase here. So our bigger number is 62,000. Our smaller is 55,000. Now the original number, because we increased from 55,000, so our original number is 55,000. So 62,000 minus 55,000, press enter, divided by 55,000. Let's see, this gives us 0.127, but we're going to times it by 100 to make it a percent. So it actually gives us 12.7%. So wages increased by 12.7%.